Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this edition of the news that I've decided to call the MOCHA news. Rather delicious drink, amongst other things. I'll go into that a little bit in a second. I hope everybody is doing fine. I hope everyone's doing well. I hope you've all got through your weekends sufficiently in one piece to come out of it okay and relatively unscathed. I'm doing all right, thank you very much. I've had a all right weekend. It's been quite a busy one, bits and bobs to do, nicely occupied, so I can't complain. And the weather has played its role in terms of the feel-good factor over the last day or two, certainly here on the south coast of Blighty. I had to smile to myself a little bit because I was just literally talking to a friend as I started this video, which reminds me, because I actually do want to put out a couple of shout outs and a couple of announcements and a couple of winks and nods and send out a bit of kudos to one or two people, because I think it's worth mentioning. Just looking down at my notes, first of all, I'll start with that person. So first of all, a big thank you to a friend of mine whose name I won't mention, but you know who you are. She knows who she is. Let's just say we had a nice, very long conversation yesterday. Not the first time, by the way, about quite a few things that, it's the sort of message I'm trying to put out all the time, which is that a lot of these things, well, pretty much all of it is connected in one shape, way or form, right? On the face of things, no, they're not. What on earth has a European Space Agency rocket got to do with votes in, for example, Turkey, or a cyclone over Bangladesh, or a war, in the Black Sea, or some more racial tension in North America? Well, first of all, it's the repetitiveness of those, how shall I say it, storylines that kind of should wake people up into realizing that this is just rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. And secondly, in all of this, it's good and it's a very valuable moment when you feel people or whatever, or feel that people who you communicate with are on the same wavelength, or sort of understand it in a way that I understand it. I'm not saying there's a right and a wrong way of understanding it, but there is a way that I see things that isn't necessarily the way other people see things. That's not to say I didn't used to see things like that, because I did. Which is why it gets sometimes very frustrating when I have conversations with people and they look at me as if I've been born onto this earth with a view to just being awkward. No. This has come from years and years and years and years and years of being on this earth, experiencing many things in my life, as I'm sure have you all. And with some, in my opinion, the penny drops, and with the vast majority, gravity doesn't take hold, and a penny stays floating in one's head. So, and I had a long conversation with her last night about that, and it's not the first time we talked, and it won't be the last time either, but it was very beneficial to me. There's a very soothing kind of comforting element to talking to somebody on the same page or in the same mindset in that moment when it comes to certain things. And like I said a little while back, there are some good people out there. Just checking my clock as always. You just got to find them. And the thing is also, there's a lot of crap in between you and that other, good person, whoever it may be. Not in any, romantic relationship way in that sense at all. It's just finding people who kind of jive, who are, who see it the way I do. And I don't feel I see it that wrongly, to be honest with you. And the more and more I do these news items, the more it hits home to me that there are many of us on the right track when it comes to identifying the lies, calling them out, or just holding a mirror to the narratives, the powers that are, and saying, look, you know. But anyway, I just wanted to mention that. So without mentioning any names, because to be fair, I don't know whether she would want to or not. And for discretion's sake and dignity's sake, I shan't. But, you know who you are. And many thanks. And yeah, to be continued. Second thing I wanted to mention is that there was an activity going on the weekend in London. There were quite a few friends of mine who went down to London, and acquaintances and people I know and stuff like that, or got to meet, the pleasure of getting to meet over the years, to do what they do best, which is give their time, their energy, in the name of basically getting a message out, right? When there are thousands of better things people could be doing with their time, but they feel it's necessary to go to London, pay their own way, risk anything. I've been to London on a couple of occasions. Sometimes it was all right and you were having a chat with the police. On other occasions, the guy right next to you was getting whacked on the head with a baton and thrown in the back of a police van with the windows mirrored out, and they didn't bother calling ambulances. Like what happened on Victoria Street, for example, when I went down there with a friend a couple of years ago. So people who go to these sorts of things on a regular basis, they're not doing it for kicks, right? And we also know that the media are never going to cover it the way it should be covered, if they cover it at all. And that's where we have to then, word of mouth or whatever, or do things like I'm doing here, pass those messages on and remind people that there are many people around who give their time and their effort and their nervous systems and their standing even in the community and their standing in their family and amongst so-called friends who then suddenly let everybody drop like a hot potato because you're not going along with what everyone else is going along with, right? And all that sort of thing. A real test of courage. I said this to a friend only last week. We are the discriminated ones, the ones in, the reasons why we're doing the vigil on the 27th. I'll come to that again in a minute as well, because there's absolutely nobody to go to talk to about this, because they're all hooked in with the very authorities that have rolled everything out in the first place, who are also connected up with all the, organisations with crowns in their badges. Right. So, there were people going there, and I would just like to don my cap to you all. You know who you are too. I spoke to a couple of you last week, actually, regarding our vigil that we're going to do on the 27th in Bournemouth Gardens. But I salute you all. Keep that going, please. Whatever you do, keep it going while we can as well. Because like I said in the last video, this is not the end. There'll be little peaks and troughs, and there'll be little lulls in media attention, and there'll be an odd headline here or there. Then there'll be a little tester to see how far that goes. And seen it all before, heard it all before. Not just me, millions of us have. Only not everyone's noticing, or choose not to. But yeah, well done to you guys for going down there. I couldn't go down. I didn't have the time or the resources, if I'm totally honest. I had other things to do, and that took up my time and my, my investment in that sense. But once I get things sorted here, then, but I would be eager to do more, for me personally, in my own environment, on my own doorstep sort of thing. I've said that before as well. From my personal opinion, I'm beginning to realise that, the importance of my own personal community, my own front door, what's going on right outside. But it is important to go to London and do that sort of stuff as well, by the way. And that was not a criticism. I was just branching off to my personal preference, that's all. But, I think it's awesome, and keep that going. And, a few of them who went down there also are active very regularly here in Bournemouth by putting, for example, reminders on bridges for passing traffic. There is on Instagram a group called Die Suddenly News. So if you can't find them, private message me. I'm on Instagram, and then I can connect you up, and then you can see the posts, and you can see the resonance, and you can see the feedback that they get from the general public that, by the way, doesn't get reported on. No surprises there, hey? I mean, the BBC didn't even report. They didn't even report on thousands of people stood right outside their door in Shepherd's Bush a couple of years ago. They didn't even report on that. Protesters were basically banging on their windows. You know what I mean? But, you know, I was going to branch off there and give an example of how crazy and obvious it is, but I won't bother. I'm sure you've heard it all before, you know. Yeah. So that's good. So those sorts of initiatives are going on all the time. We always have stand in the park initiatives going on. I don't per se, but there are people who do it, you know, and very regularly, for example. So if there's anything of that sort that people want to get involved with or whatever, I can definitely pass you on to the correct people. That's for sure. So if anybody is interested or is willing to get involved, for example, helping out doing banners and anything like that, because it could always come in useful at some point, then do get in touch with me. It's not a problem. I will gladly pass on that information to whoever. No worries at all. And just for the record, I'm not some sort of chief organizer or Uber guru here arranging worldwide protests. I'm just being of benefit to my fellow citizens who have concerns they'd like to raise and are not being listened to. By design, of course. Anyway, so I thought I would just mention that. So that was a couple of things going on, simmering, as it were. And of course, that simmering will take us hopefully nicely to the before mentioned 27th of May, which will be our everybody's vigil, a community initiative for the community, by the community, to offer some solace, to offer a place to talk to people, for people to talk, I should say. If not for any other reason, but cathartic one, to get it off your chest, to feel like you're being listened to feel like for one moment, for a split second in your life, you're not totally alone in all of this misery. Because I know a lot of people are going through misery at the moment. That's not a figment of my imagination. I talk to them, so I know. Well, only those, and that's quite a few. I'm sure there are plenty more. So I'm all quite excited about that. I don't get excited about many things anymore, if I'm totally honest with you. But those sorts of things, I think because inside me something tells me it's worthwhile. And I think it's only the worthwhile things that get me excited anymore. Certainly no electric gadgets get me excited or anything like that anymore. None of that stuff. That's long gone. It seems to be more the important stuff now, which I'm quite happy with. If that's the way I'm developing as a person, then I ain't going to argue with that. Long may that continue. But yeah, 27th, 1400 hours. If anybody wants to get involved beforehand, feel free, like I said, to get in touch with me. No problem. I'm sure we can find you something to do. Like maybe, you know, paint the curbs on the way into Bournemouth. It's only about 5 miles of them. Or something like that. You know what I mean? No, but kidding aside, we have a nice team of people. And I'd like to say thank you to them as well, even though we've not done it yet totally. But, you know, we're on the right track. We've got it all nicely lined up. So by the time the 27th comes around, we'll have a very hospitable and compassionate environment to meet, gather, and interact with those who have concerns, like I said, of which there are many. And of course, 3 days after that, there will be a Flat Earth Social on the 30th of May at 1900 hours at the Pavilion Arms in Bournemouth. And we will have a special guest. This time round, it will be another Dave, but this one, his name is Weiss, and he will be linked in per video call and will be attending to people's queries, questions, and all the rest of it on the evening. So do feel free to come along to that. If not, to maybe pick his brains about certain matters or whatever. You come along. It's only a 50 quid entrance fee. Not really. Yes, so that'll be going on as well. So things are starting to pick up with these Flat Earth Socials nicely in between. And hopefully we'll be entering a summer of enlightenment. And that's down to us. That ain't going to come from your TV license money. That's for sure. Right. Moving on from the real stuff onto nonsense, because I've decided now to introduce a nonsense section of my news items. Others would call it just news. I call it nonsense news, right? Not saying these things don't kind of happen, but not the way we're told. Here's one example. There is a vote going on at the moment, an election in Turkey. Millions of people have cast their vote in Turkey. And the President Erdogan, who's been there for thousands of years, it feels like, is still there. And they're even talking about how he may even refuse the outcome if he's not satisfied. Sounds very democratic to me. So that's all going on in Turkey. Millions and millions and millions of people there. You know, nothing to eat, just survived an earthquake, but off they go to the polling stations because there's nothing like sorting out your priorities, is what I say. Speaking of priorities, also in the nonsense news, there are people being blown off the face of the earth into oblivion. Not a vacuum of space, because that would be a violation of natural law, but you get where I'm going from. And that is Bangladesh and Myanmar, where there are allegedly 200-kilometre-an-hour winds gusting through the streets like a baked beans fest. So that might be so as well. It could be very lazy and flippant of me to just kind of file that and box that off into the Department of Distraction. But I will anyway, though. So there's those couple of things going on. And here, I think, is the cherry on top of all the nonsense news. Like I say, there might be some truth to bits of it. Like there could be some trees falling down in the high winds. I'm not suggesting there aren't. And there could be officially an election. I'm not suggesting there isn't. Right? But, you know, I have to look a little bit deeper. But the cherry on top, and you're going to all love this. I loved it. Remember our friend Zelensky, the actor who just recently has left Germany. In fact, today he left Germany. Well, he went from Italy. He's doing a European visit, you see. He's lobbying. Don't know why. But he went to Italy, then he came to Germany, and the German Chancellor basically guaranteed Zelensky some money. And in, I think, 6 billion or something like that. You know, as you do. And he's now moving on. He's gone now to France to speak to one of Rothschild's chief accountants, a guy called Macron, who happens to also be fulfilling the role as chief puppet. French president. Well, they're over there now chatting about stuff as well. But here's the interesting thing. Whilst he was in Germany, our mate Zelensky, not that he came dressed for the occasion either, but he was also handed a prize called the Karlspreis, which is given to very important people in a city/town called Aachen. Aachen. Anybody wants to look it up, there is an absolutely fantastic building in that place. It's a cathedral made up of 3 or 4 different buildings. Unbelievable. Clearly got some significance, that region. Otherwise, they wouldn't be handing out this prize there, I would imagine. But just so that you understand the importance and weight, gravitas of this prize, previous winners include Churchill. If you need a good reference for your prize, get one of them on there, right? So we've got Churchill on there. I mean, he's top, isn't he? Eisenhower would have done the trick, but I think Churchill, you're on a winner with him. Then we also have Pope Francis, which is also something to look up to and be glad to be named in the same breath as on receiving your prize, I'm sure. And there was another chap who also won it, called Bill Clinton. I'll just leave that there. You know, all the world really is a stage. No two ways about that. Problem is, the collateral damage on ground level is real. People do suffer. People do get hurt. You know. But at the end of the day, nothing that a cup of MOCHA can't, swish away, which is what they've called the cyclone, by the way, that's hanging around in Bangladesh and Myanmar at the moment. Cyclone MOCHA. Leaving genders out the name now, are they? What a shame. Anyway, I thought I would just bring that to you. 20 minutes have elapsed, so I'm going to quickly get off this now before the video stops suddenly. So thank you for joining me. I hope you will have a good week. I hope you'll remain calm in whatever it is you do and get some enjoyment out of anything it is you do. And you know, hopefully I will talk to you all soon. Some of you very much sooner. Larry does send his regards. He is happy. He always is. So I don't have to mention that much anymore, do I, in the future? It kind of speaks for himself. You can see it's all over his little face. But we will talk again soon. So on that note, I will say thank you very much indeed. And ta-ta for now. Adios.